And so basically, to just talk about Isis a little bit. Isis is a moon goddess, so symbolised by the moon, and she can be identified with the Greek god Artemis. She can be identified with the Roman god Diana, and the angel Gabriel, which is the Holy Ghost. And she's always the third in the Trinity. You know, she's the apex of the pyramid.
Yeah.
She's the all-seeing eye, and this is correlated because if you watch, for instance, the film Constantine with Keanu Reeves. I only watched this the other week, but there's a scene in there where there's a particular actor who plays the angel Gabriel, and Keanu Reeves walks up to her. And he says, "What have you been seeing with your all-seeing eye of late?"
Yes, I spoke with the bishop.
Yes. Now I know what you want, son.
Still keeping your all-seeing eye on me. I'm flattered.
Right. No one would pick up on that unless you knew if you read this stuff, but it was there.
Yeah.
You know, there was obviously the connection between the all-seeing eye and the angel Gabriel.
Yeah.
So, out comes Google, as it does, and I started doing a search for Princess Diana and Isis. So the first thing I stumbled across, Princess Diana's perfume, her official perfume, is called Isis. So, it's like quite a good connection for a start. She's only got one official perfume and it's called Isis. So you start looking into things a bit more, and then you see that Princess Diana has got a memorial, which is a ring of water, and it's in the Serpentine, right next to Buckingham Palace in London. And I went down there to have a look at it and see if I could see anything else. But basically, this ring has east and west kind of flows of water, and the flow down this ring, and then at the other end they conjoin, so east and west meet. So if you think of that symbology of East and West meeting, Islam and Christianity conjoining, do you know what I mean? The whole idea of unifying something into one.
Yeah.
So there's the symbology of the unification of two extremes in this ring of water. But basically, if you look into Isis, she's identified with the Holy Ghost, as I've said, and the angel Gabriel. And now in the film, The Lord of the Rings, which is an esoteric piece of work by J.R.R. Tolkien. Obviously, everyone knows the Lord of the Rings because it's been put on the cinema screens. But there's a character in there called Galadriel. And if you look into the history of the character Galadriel, she was identified with the angel Gabriel. I.e., that's what she was. That's what she's symbolic for.
Yeah.
And she was the wearer of a water ring. She controlled the water ring. So obviously, you've got Princess Diana, water ring memorial, where East and West meet, combined with the angel Gabriel in Lord of the Rings, or Galadriel being the water ring bearer. So you've got this symbolic figure and this this symbolism running throughout. So moving on to the next thing, how else can I identify Diana with Isis? And so you start looking at the Pont d'Alma, where she died, where she had a horrific car crash. Obviously there's stuff on the internet already that insinuates that the Pont d'Alma was a pagan sacrificial site. And it was used like ritually for hundreds of years, like prior to the modernisation of the area.
Right.
Outside of the tunnel, we have a Flame of Liberty, which is in tribute to Diana's passing.
Yeah.
The Flame of Liberty, which is similar to the Olympic torch. Well, in fact, it is the Olympic torch. But if you think about the Flame of Liberty, and then you think to the Statue of Liberty in New York, the Statue of Liberty, Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval will all state that the Statue of Liberty in New York is symbolic for ISIS. And outside where Diana died, you've got this, Flame of Liberty statue, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And again, if you go back to the Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, Isis carries with her the sacred fire religiously preserved and kept burning in a special temple by the Vestal Virgin. The fire is genuine, immortal flame of Isis. So symbolically, what she's got outside the Pont d'Alma is a connection to Isis yet again. So moving on, I'd got wind of a tribute in Harrods, and this is where obviously, do you know much about the Diana murder inquest and everything that goes with it?
Much of it, not all the details, but the overarching story is very familiar to me, yes.
Right, yeah, obviously there's the whole conspiracy, the idea that she was murdered, and Al-Fayed believed that she was murdered, and there's the fight with the royal family, essentially.
Yeah.
If you go to Harrods, and this is where it's proof that both sides are in on the same act, and this shows that this whole idea of the conspiracy of the murder of Princess Diana is all part of the intended stage play that's been going on all along. In the Harrods in Harrods, I went up to him and I said, "Where's the Princess Diana memorial?" She went, "Oh, it's in the Egyptian staircase." So I was like, "You're joking me?" So I get led to this Egyptian staircase, and you go in. It's real. I've been to Egypt, and it's pretty much exactly the same as what you'd expect in Egypt. Real grand, golden-looking, like staircase with escalators in it and stuff like that, and loads of cheap perfumes. Well, not cheap, really expensive perfumes on sale.
Yeah.
And you walk over to the shrine of Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed, and you've got these two pictures. You've got obviously Diana and Dodi. Think about that. Christianity and you've got Islam.
Right.
And these two pictures are being symbolically held up by a dove. And the dove is also attributed to the Holy Ghost, which is the same thing as the angel Gabriel and everything else that goes with it. So you've got symbology there. Below these two photographs, you've got a pyramid, all right, a 3D pyramid with a time glass in it. So symbolic to pyramids and time and stuff.
Yeah.
Then on either side of that, you've got two very tall candles, looking like a number 11 and also looking like the two pillars of Freemasonry that ISIS is standing between. So what I'm here and proposing today is that essentially we have got Princess Diana being identified with the fertility god of ISIS.
Very
Right.
interesting. Do you have, by the way, taken any pictures of this memorial?
I've got photos of it. The problem I've got is I can't write enough in enough time because I work full time as well to get this all out. Do you know what I mean? It's such a big thing to write about. It's,
Of course.
It requires a lot of time.
Yeah.
But basically, so you think about this with the New World Order, they wanted a one world religion. We've got the combination of Christianity and Islam here symbolically in Harrods, right? And obviously Islam and Christianity both accept the angel Gabriel as a messenger of God. So we've got the proof here that they want to do this with Diana. They want to identify her with ISIS. So what does that make Prince William? If ISIS is, the mother fertility god, that obviously means that William naturally becomes the son.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So looking at this, I thought, right, we have to do a bit of research into William now. And I 6 months ago, someone said that I was going to be researching the royal family. I'd have laughed my head off and said, get away. It doesn't concern me whatsoever. But I've ended up being driven down this path, and it's doing my head in.
Yeah.
but anyhow, Prince William's birthday. He was born on June the 21st. Do you know when June the 21st is?
That's the summer solstice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, the Son of Most High.
Yeah.
So in the New Testament, the angel Gabriel announced, "He shall be great, and he shall be called the Son of the Most High. The Holy which shall be born of thee shall be called the Son of God." Right?
Yeah.
So we've got Prince William's birthday, and it's on the solstice, when the sun is most high.
Yeah.
Right? And then you look into it a bit further. How old is he in 2012?
Probably 33, right?
No, he's 30 years old.
30 years
right?
old, okay, yeah.
Connection here. Jesus began his ministry at age 30.
There you go, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can't get away from this. It's all over these people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, symbolically, 30 years old, William's birthday, symbolically can be seen as an XXX in Roman numerology.
That's right, yeah.
And it just so happens that the Olympics 2012 is XXX. So it's the same Olympiad.
Exactly. It's the what does it be? The 30th games,
30th.
Summer Olympic Games, yeah, XXX.
Yeah. So right, then you start thinking, what I was saying about, for instance, symbology and stuff like that, and you've got McDonald's and you've got Starbucks and you've got Schweppes, all like essentially occult symbology. That's when people are buying into these things, they're subconsciously buying into this messianic event, as I've stated before.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about this and the symbolism of the XXX, the triple X, think about what most single men do on the computers. I know it sounds crazy, but, that's powerful energy that's being wasted there. There's life-giving energy, and they're symbolically buying into that triple X stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Same as you've got the triple X film with Vin Diesel, in which he's seen as this heroic figure, and everyone went to the cinema and powered the triple X thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. This shows you how endemic this thing is, and how crafty these things are.
Of course, and also I think if you convert the alphanumerical number on a alphanumeric system from 1 to 9, then I think X becomes 6, so it's basically 666 right there.
666. Well, I didn't know that, but that's good.
Yeah.
Right. So the next thing on, moving into William yet again, with more stuff to do with him. It turned out a few months ago that he'd been made the 1,000th member of the Order of the Garter. Now he's actually the 999th member of the Order of the Garter, but they changed it to 1,000 because of someone, not being registered or something on the official log. But as you will know, the Order of the Garter is the parent organisation of Freemasonry.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think about that situation that we've got there, what are the chances that Prince William, if they hadn't pre-planned this, would happen to be the 1,000th member? I.e., in the chronology of events, it just so happened that he was bang on the 1,000th member.
And that's also could be interpreted as the 1,000 points of lights. I don't know if you heard about that.
I don't know about that. No, that's new to me.
Yeah. Okay, continue. Yeah.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? It's quite a hard coincidence to fall upon that it'd be the 1,000th member in as it happens.
Of course.
But then go on further on again. Did you come across the Prince William received his wings news all over Sky News and stuff recently? I don't know if you came across that. Basically,
yeah.
He's been in the RAF, he's been doing his duties, and there's all the RAF symbolism flying everywhere at the moment. They're trying to get everyone into the armed forces by giving everyone a bank holiday for Armed Forces Day, you know what I mean? Let's keep the war going, guys.
Yeah.
But essentially, with the RAF, he said he received his wings. And if you look at the symbolism of the RAF wings and the RAF, basically, when you don't have your wings, the RAF is, the logo is the RAF in a circle of, I can't remember the name for it, a wreath, like a circle wreath.
Okay, yeah.
So if you imagine that as the Egyptian sun disk for Horus, and then when all of a sudden they say he's got his wings, they put these wings on the RAF sun disk, and it makes it exactly the same as the Horus sun disk with wings.
There we go. Huh.
So, the fact that they was pushing around the fact that he's got his wings, it was just symbolic for him saying that, he's ascending into this thing, whatever you want to call this thing. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But, here I am again saying that Prince William is, as I said, with the Dan Brown book and the Da Vinci Code and everything that goes with it, they're trying to get the masses to believe that there's a lost bloodline of Jesus Christ, and there might be. But what I'm saying is they're trying to get everyone to accept that. And so when Dan Brown's book, which was a terrible book, written really badly, but obviously interesting story,
sure.
When everyone from, your 60-year-old woman who, doesn't get out much to your Benidorm crew or whatever in Spain, when they were all, running around reading this book, going on about it, they were all having the seed implanted in their head that there's a lost bloodline to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And you think about the idea of the Priory of Sion. This thing is all to do with the Sion Olympic Games.
Yeah.
It's all part of the same thing. But moving on, obviously the last thing symbolic with the Queen as well is that it's a Diamond Jubilee in 2012. So they're going to be...
Really?
They're going to be... Which is a lot of celebrations.
Yeah.
But moving on. Moving on, as always. Olympic bid 2012, the London Olympic bid. We received it, and we received confirmation on July the 6th, 2005.
The International Olympic Committee has the honor of announcing that the Games of the 30th Olympiad in 2012 are awarded to the city of London.
The day after was the 7/7 bombings of London, but on that particular day, everyone, the news would have us believe, was full of positive energy that Great Britain had won the Olympic Games. I mean, I think there's probably only about 2% who were bothered about it, but the media would obviously tell you that everyone was, going out getting drunk about it, but essentially no.
Yeah.
But what they didn't tell you, and it's been covered up by the news, but it's on the internet, but it never got covered in News 24 or whatever you watch. Basically, on the same day that London bid was won for the Olympic Games, right, there was a huge, I don't know what you want to call it, massacre on the island of Haiti, in which 24 people confirmed dead after more than 300 heavily armed UN troops carried out a major pre-dawn military raid in Cité Soleil. So what happened was the UN troops, which is supposed to be a peacekeeping force, not something that goes out and actually, does stakeout operations on drugs barons.
Yeah.
They did this pre-dawn military raid in which they killed 24 innocent people, right? And there's a lot of people looking into this. But what is symbolic is the place where it was. It was in Cité Soleil, which is Sun City, right?
Yeah.
Gets even weirder. It's one of the poorest communities in Haiti. It's one of the poorest communities in the Northern Hemisphere. It's got endemic AIDS, poverty, everything. People are starving in this place because of the way that it's, essentially it's been crippled by the power structure.
Yeah.
But basically, it's one of the poorest communities, as I've said, and it's in a place called Port-au-Prince. So it's Prince, Port, Sun City.
Mm.
On the same day the Olympic bid was won.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that symbolically you've got Prince and Sun, and then you've got this thing that I've connected with Prince William. Was this another thing equally like buying into an event with such a negative, horrible event in which the UN massacred loads of people, or 24 people? Its symbolism is ripe through it, and it gets even worse because basically the UN Colonel Marino suggested that ballistic tests can be done on the dead, and he said records from the Medicine Without Borders shows an influx of civilian casualties starting at 11 a.m. The numbers are on the Wikipedia page, so 11 a.m. brought in. And then you look into Port-au-Prince itself. Port-au-Prince celebrated its independence 200 years ago. I don't know what it celebrated its independence from because it didn't seem to get any better. But the bicentennial monument that they erected in the independence of Port-au-Prince just so happens to be a pyramid without a capstone and an Olympic flame at the top.
Oh, nice.
Right. So I don't know what that's saying, but you've got Sun City with a prince and you've got a pyramid with an Olympic flame on the same day that the Olympics 2012 bid was won.
My
That
God.
doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. Too much in there. So obviously getting into touchy areas and stuff here because it's pretty dark, really, when you think about it. I mean, moving into the Olympics 2008, I found this out recently. The 2008 logo, have you seen the Beijing 2008 with the little guy and his wobbly legs?
I've seen that, yes, yeah.
Doesn't look very much like an athlete, but, given it's the Olympics and stuff. But it just so happens that if you decide to compartmentalise this logo into 4 different sections, it spells the word Zion.
Really now?
What are the chances that 2 Olympic logos in succession, both can easily spell the word Zion without any form of trickery?
You know what? I'm looking at that as we speak here. I'm looking at your post about this, and that is incredible. Did you decipher that, or did you pick up that from somewhere else?
When I just deciphered it the other day.
Wow.
Just having a look at it and just saw it, and I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
That's really interesting. I'm going to have this picture up on the website or link up this posting here of the blog so people can take a look at that. And that is really interesting. Wow.
Obviously, you've got the slogan, One World, One Dream, for the Beijing 2008 Olympics. Doesn't that sound like a New World Order slogan to you?
Indeed.
Yeah. And so anyhow, this goes on further because there's more symbolism to do with the Olympics 2008.
Yeah.
Basically, on the 11th of November 2007, so that's 11/11, they released 5 mascots, right, for the Beijing Olympics. And these are weird little mascots that all got pyramid-style hats on. And essentially, each of these mascots correlates to a colour ring of the Olympic logo. We've got the green, orange, red, black and blue rings, and each of the mascots correlate to one of these. They've all got their own colour. And essentially what you're looking at here is, if you take it back to the Mayan calendar, and you've got the 26,000 year cycle, and essentially the Mayans believed that within that cycle there was 5 separate cycles of 5,150 years. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But basically they stated that at the end of each world, a particular one of the 5 elements destroyed that world and then created it again. It restarted itself.
Indeed.
So there's like 4 destructions and moving into another cycle of sorts.
Yeah.
And I was looking at this, and there's the blue character, which is the last ring in the Olympic logo. The blue character is symbolic for water. It's called Baby. It's a weird little critter. I don't know what you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it's symbolic for water, strong in water sports, and she reflects the blue Olympic ring. And this is the only of the 5 characters that's got a spiritual third eye.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, why has this got a spiritual third eye? And then you think about this Diana's ring of water, and then you think about this spiritual third eye in the mascot, and you think of water obviously is symbolic for Aquarius. there's this idea that we're moving into this blue ring of the Olympics, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, to explain this better, those Olympic rings for me are the 5 cycles of time from the main calendar. Only one's connected to another, and it's almost like there's the transition stage where the two rings meet up. If you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
And so when, for instance, you've got a set of films like by J.R.R. Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings, what it really means is the Lord of the Cycles of Time.
Yeah.
Right. And so then when you think about the trilogy, you had the Fellowship of the Ring, which incidentally opens up with Gandalf's birthday on the 111th birthday, 111, which is obviously a pyramid number. You've got Fellowship of the Ring moving into the Two Towers. Sounds symbolic to World Trade Center, if you like.
Yeah.
Moving into Return of the King. Same thing. They're on about buying us into another messianic prophecy. So, do you know what I'm saying about this symbolically ring cycle thing? It's all basically insinuating that throughout the cycles of time, something has had control of everything. And what I'm trying to propose is that when, for instance, in Egypt, they pretty much know that the Grand Pyramid, the Great Pyramid, started fully formed as such, and then the Egyptian civilization went into decline from there and after. All the pyramids that followed it were in like disrepair. They don't stand the test of time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And obviously, everyone believes that preceding or before that, there was obviously the Great Flood of sorts. Potential like the Great Flood, which essentially came after the destruction of Atlantis. So I don't know too much about Atlantis myself, except it's supposed to be a highly technological, civilization of sorts.
Indeed.
But if you think about these cycles of time, Atlantis was destroyed. The same power structure, whatever, managed to survive it anyhow because they had the technology to survive it, and then they restarted again straight with the pyramid back into the next cycle.
Well, there you go, and I think that's an extremely interesting point because to some extent we can, to some extent we can say that we are in kind of that technological advancement, as it were, right now, and we're also kind of approaching it. It's the speed up of the thing, and it's like, we're going to be like at the peak of our civilization, as it were, whatever we want to call it. And I think basically at the same time as everything is, the technological singularity, call it what you will, this kind of the high point of our achievement. At the same time that we actually reach that pinnacle, we could potentially also kind of fall again, so to speak. And this could be a moment, and this might where we'll be around 2012. I don't know.
Yeah. Where I can take this now after this. I've covered the cycles. I could pretty much tell you what the religion of the New World Order is as well.
Okay.
If you want to know that,
I'd love to. Yeah, share with us, please.
Well, basically, if you're reading Revelations, chapter 11, verse 12. Now a great sign appeared in heaven: a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet. Remember the moon because that's symbolised with Isis. And on her head a garland of 12 stars, like the 12 stars of the EU flag. But basically, in Revelations, it refers to the breaking of the 7 seals. Right. In the main prophecies for Chilam, a high priest, in 1560, there was a prophecy written about the arrival of Christianity and the arrival. This was like the end of the Mayan calendar prophecies of sorts. And he said, "There the masters of our souls arrived. There the counties were distributed to their chiefs. There we began to learn the holy faith. There water began to enter our heads. There were laid the foundations of the high church, the palace of God. There the principle of the 7 sacraments were founded." So 7 again, 7 seals in Revelation, 7 sacraments in the main prophecies. And I do Reiki, so I know what there's 7 of, and there's 7 chakras. 7 sacraments, 7 chakras, same word, same thing to me.
Yeah.
And as a confirmation of that, on my blog, there's some more deciphering of imagery. And if you have an issue of the UK passport from 1998, I think that's when mine was issued, there's an image of the rose, the thistle, and the daffodil, which are the flowers of England, Scotland, and Wales. But as I've said, these images have 2 meanings, and they have 2, they have a duality. And this image that no one knows what it is, it's on a page called Reserved for Observations Only with a number 11 on the page. It's basically showing a diagram of the chakra system. And you can correlate that because basically the heart chakra lines up with an image of a heart, and the solar plexus chakra aligns up with an image of a sun. So basically you've got this thing, but even more concerning, or not concerning, on the root chakra and the crown chakra, it's signed with a inverted pentagram.
Really?
So if you think about that, there's an inverted pentagram on your crown chakra and your root chakra. Now, I don't know what that's symbolically saying, but it's obviously involving spiritualism.
Yeah.
And if this is in the UK passport, I mean, it's beyond me that our government have ever acknowledged the chakras. I've never known that in my entire life.
Yeah.
But as a further proof to the New World Order religion is going to be based on spirituality, the Tibetan flag. I don't know if you've seen this. I've recently picked this up myself because of all the kerfuffle with the Olympic torch and the Dalai Lama and everything.
Yeah.
Basically, it's become pretty apparent that the Free Tibet movement was funded by the CIA. Because it was a way to rise up against China. But essentially, like, ignoring that, if you look at the Tibetan Buddhist flag, or the Tibetan flag that they used from 1912 to 1950, which is banned by China now, if you look at that, it depicts what is a mountain, but it's not a mountain, it's a pyramid. And at the top of the pyramid is a sun. Right? So essentially you've got a pyramid with an all-seeing eye on the banned Tibetan flag that the Tibetan Buddhists used to represent themselves. So what is that saying about Tibet in 1912 to 1950 when they used that flag? It's almost like it's a blueprint for, the New World Order's religion of sorts, based on meditation, spirituality, chakras, and, all that goes with it.
I mean, I'm looking at a picture of the Tibetan flag right now, and even the fact that there's two, lions, if you will, that is holding up the eternal flame, and even the word itself, if you look at pyramidion or pyramidos, I should say, that's basically fire in the middle. So I mean, they give you the hint right there that this is a pyramid, and then you have the sun in the backdrop. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So
you've got this thing, and I've got a recent picture of the Dalai Lama sat giving a press conference, and his head was aligned perfectly with the back of that sun. And this is where I'm trying. This is where I'm moving to some weird stuff, because obviously this New World Order religion is basically still sun worship, but it's based on spiritual sun worship. It's going to combine Islam and Christianity. And it's through the emergence of Isis and the resurrection of a sun god. This is how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the thing is, obviously, New Age talk, conspiracy theories, and all of this stuff that's put out there, these are low-level distractions and stuff. And obviously, the New Age spirituality movement, it's not a bad thing in itself. But essentially, if you look at where it probably started from something very different to what we expect. Do you know what I mean? This whole moving into the age of Aquarius and the whole New Age stuff.
Well, of course. I mean, from my point of view, at least at this point, from what I've picked up on so far, this is the reason also for why they are reverting back to all of these, esoteric. Some would say even pagan if they come from a Christian background, what have you. But the reason for it is that I think that there is a spiritual truth in many of the methods, so to speak, that they actually use to control people, meaning that there actually is something real to this. And they have known this for a very long time, but they consequently either manipulate people in the other direction and consequently say that that's all bollocks. Don't look at that. We have your religion right here for you. We call it Christianity, what have you. And I consider many of the religions that we have around today basically is a reformation from the oldest ancient religions going back to the ancient world of Cana, Egypt, what have you, And it doesn't matter in what package they sell it to us. If you're smart enough, you're going to be able to see through that. If you're clouded by too much of the manipulation, that's unfortunate, but in many cases it's people's own choice, and I have nothing against that either,
No, that's of course you can't dictate that at all, can you?
No.
I mean, essentially, like, the thing that I'm trying to get across what I'm trying to say, I mean, I'm moving to an area that Matthew Deleuze touches on. I think you've spoke to Matthew Deleuze before. But essentially, for me, the power structure that remained in power, or that started, something that built the pyramid, that got the people to build the pyramid, was a very powerful force. And in the history of, I've got a particular book called The Secret History of the World by Jonathan Black. It's an esoteric secret history of the world. And this particular book states how that since, the early days, we're getting more and more ingrained in matter. We're moving, like, everyone thinks of evolution in a material sense, but consciousness has equally gone through an evolution, moving from the spirit, drawing itself down into material matter over time. And so, for instance, when you listen to the Egyptian stories of Zep Tepi the first time, and the state that the gods ruled the earth, ruled Egypt, sorry, and then the gods retracted, so they built statues, effigies for people to worship to. And then eventually, after the gods had retracted so much, the pharaohs then ruled the earth for the gods, or ruled Egypt for the gods. And then, essentially, went from statue worship to idol worship into what we're currently at. We're at celebrity star worship, pop idol.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's the same thing. Madonna, all this lot. It's all part of the same thing.
Well, exactly. Oh, sorry. Continue.
But my thing is that obviously the Egyptian power structure that was in place then has never died out. Because if you look at the way the power structure has moved, like essentially when Egypt collapsed, you had the Exodus from Moses and stuff into the area of Israel and Palestine. And then the next major power structure was essentially with Rome. And if you go to Rome, you'll notice that there's Egyptian obelisks. If you go to Rome, you'll notice that there's Egyptian obelisks in front of the Vatican, in front of the Pantheon and stuff like that. They carried those things over there from Egypt.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, the Roman Catholics went on the Inquisition, slaughtering out any heretical religions such as like the Cathars and the Bogomils. Moved through Europe, and then essentially found a new power structure to erect in Paris. And obviously Paris has got, it's symbolic for paradies, if it's already in the word.
Yeah.
But Paris, they moved the obelisks and stuff, Place de la Concorde on the Champs-Élysées alignment.
Yeah.
You got that whole symbolic area. And when I went there the other day, incidentally, I went to the front of the Louvre, and they've got a aerial viewpoint of the layout of the Louvre, and it's an exact replica of Luxor Temple with the Avenue of Sphinxes running to Karnak Temple in Egypt, because I've been to the same place and I've recognised this. But there's no official statement anywhere that the Louvre is based on Egyptian temples and alignments and stuff, but it is, obviously.
Of course.
So this power structure, then once it had done in Paris, it decided that it wanted to find the new centre of power, and it moved to London. And if you go to London, they've got an obelisk and stuff like that. You've got Big Ben. The official story is that Big Ben was named after this politician named Ben, who stood up in Parliament and said, "Oh, let's call it Big Ben," and everyone laughed and said yes.
Yeah.
But it's not called Big Ben because of that. It's named after the Ben stone, which is one of the very first. It stands proud in Egyptian, history.
Of course, and even in Hebrew, Ben is the son of someone, so it's the big son.
Yeah, Yeah, so the Big Ben, for instance, is a huge obelisk type structure right near the obelisk and the London Eye, which is symbolic again for the all-seeing eye.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And then obviously this power structure moved from London to America. And then there we have it. America has been used as an excuse to run all these wars that it's needed to run until it's collapsed itself into the ground, and then America will die. And that's how I see it. America's been used, essentially. And they've used the people there.
Well, yeah, and that's also an interesting point. I mean, there's so much to touch upon on that, but just to be brief about it, even the fact that I think that they want that if we talk about America as an experiment, if you will, and much in the same way that we can look at Soviet Russia as an experiment, but or communist Russia, but they might have wanted a certain kind of stock, if you will, of people or a certain type of breed, those who were willing to draw out the roots from their own country and just leave and have a certain type of mentality. And if you take all these different things into account, you end up with a really interesting picture that potentially is showing you that what you're mentioning here, that they wanted to use America for a specific purpose. But anyway, please continue. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if we're going on this premise that this power structure's been there and it's never died out and stuff, and then obviously you start looking at the English words and the language and stuff like that, and we're all connecting back to this idea of scion, and then you start thinking, essentially, with English words, as I've said, you've got the word television, televi scion.
Yeah.
So basically, everyone thinks the television is an evil hypnotic machine anyhow, I mean, other than the ones who enjoy it.
Yeah.
But, it's there to televise scion.
Yeah.
And then you think of the word spiritual ascension, spiritual ascend scion. It's the same, it's in the words of what we use.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's endemic and it's there, you can't get away from it.
Of course. And vision or scion, that's even the eye in there, because it has to do with visualization or to see see something, so.
Yeah. But this is where, like, I can start to, like, wrap this thing up slightly.
Yeah.
Is that if you look at it, it starts becoming apparent that it's more to do with just, like, for instance, it's more to do than just someone hijacking a power structure and keeping it, like, in control. It's almost like it's, to do with material reality itself. It starts to feel like that it's coming from something that's, if you think of us as souls and spirits trapped in matter, then, like, this is where I'm starting to, like, perceive things, in the sense of, if you look at all religious figures throughout history, every single one of these illuminated, enlightened figures, every single one of them has a sun behind the heads.
Yeah.
Right, so sun worship, again.
Yeah.
And Christmas, for instance, you can't get away from Christmas. I mean, Matthew Deleuze talks about this stuff, and I recommend listening to Matthew Deleuze, because he's a very intelligent man, and he's a very, very special man. But Christmas, obviously, we're all driven into this worship of the sun at Christmas. You can't get away from it. If you've got kids or if you're related to kids, you need to be part of it. We all buy into this Christmas thing. Christmas is sun worship. If you look at the tree that you've got in your living room, it's like the tinsel is a serpent. You've got an all-seeing eye at the top. You've got a bloody pagan tree, pyramid thing that's sat in the corner of your room.
Yeah.
And then Easter, obviously, again, it's more sun worship. And when kids, for instance, are all wanting the Easter eggs and stuff, it's nothing to do with the fact they're eating chocolate. They're buying into a ritual. They're buying into more sun worship, whether you look at it or not.
Yeah.
And the same goes with, like, for instance, crematoriums that haven't got any kind of religion tied to them. If you look at crematoriums, there's sun symbolism at crematoriums. You look at number 10 Downing Street, above the number 10, there's a sun symbol, like above the the centre of where our Prime Minister resides. You look at Shell Petrol, and it's sun symbolism. And then, for instance, something I found the other day, my UK driving licence, there's a hologram you can barely see, but I shone it in the light. It's a sun and a pyramid on my driving licence in Britain.
Yeah.
Something you'd expect on the dollar bill. And so all I can say is that, essentially, with this symbolism, when people don't realise what they're looking at and what they're buying into, this stuff is like taking spiritual energy away from them. I.e., it's, they don't realise what it's doing. I don't know how to really put that into words, but it's like, we've only got our five senses, and, like, we're aware of everything within those five senses, but much like with the the light spectrum, we're not aware of what microwaves and X-rays and infrared rays and everything are doing. There's stuff we don't understand, and, like, our five senses are a filter.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that these symbols that have all been, like, fed with energy from, if it was like a talisman, like they feed the energy from the stars in ancient Egypt, that's how they used to do it. It's working on some level we can't comprehend. That's basically trapping and deceiving us here all the time.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, in my opinion, when you die and you get these references to people saying, I met Jesus and all this kind of stuff, and they tell you that they met these enlightened beings and everything,
Yeah.
because they're so familiar with this symbolism, because they haven't asked what it's all about or anything like that, it's almost like if you, for instance, meet Jesus when you die and you go with him, and he'll tell you can be a lawyer next time and he'll send you back around again.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you're encapsulated in this, as the Tibetans believe, and Tibetan is the New World Order religion, in my opinion. They believe in reincarnation. And so the reason why the reincarnation happens is if you're still duped by this symbolism when you go through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to be able to stop, believing that this symbolism is here to help you, because it's not. And my opinion is that what's going on is this material reality, whatever we're related in, it's much like the Gnostics believed, and in the sense of the Gnostics believed that there was a creator of the material universe, but they never ever saw their creator as the supreme being or the god, if you like. The creator was a malevolent force of sorts, keeping us all entrapped in this matter, preventing us from being what we really are. And like the Gnostics used to say, when they died and they met the creator, they used to say, you're not my god, I'm a Gnostic. And essentially that's when they believed that they had moved on from everything. And it's almost like it's the same principle. I mean, they tried to wipe out the Gnostics, did the Roman Catholics, but it's the same principle. Like people, when this spiritual event happens in 2012, if this spiritual event happens, the obelisks and the pyramids and the symbolism will still be around everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Everyone might be ascended in a spiritual fashion and know about the 7 chakras and stuff like that, but you're still going to be feeding your energy into the same machine.
Of course. What you're talking about here, as far as I can pick up on here, is that you're talking about that you need to become smart, or you need to be able to interpret all of the symbols and what it does to you. Not only that okay, we have sun symbolism everywhere, very good, but what actually does it mean? Where does it lead you, and so forth? And in what way are they using it on us? Because in many cases, I can also see that. I mean, if we look at how nature operates, how it exists, how the functions of natures occur, we can understand that the sun, for instance, is one of the most important elements that we have in order to sustain us, keep us alive. So obviously one can understand that there is a veneration for the sun, but how is this being used? And I mean, what you're referring to here also, as far as I can pick up on it, is a little bit of the Buddhist ideology or theme, that we actually are trapped in a kind of illusion, if you will, or the wheel of reincarnation, and that this is something that actually is a trap. To some extent, I don't agree with that idea a little bit, but